A weak, sickly horse was dismissed by everyone at the auction, deemed worthless and left unnoticed. While others scoffed and turned away, one girl saw something extraordinary in its tired eyes and decided to take a chance. Years later, that same horse became a champion, leaving those who had once dismissed it drowning in stunned. The midday sun blazed down on the dusty planks of the corral, casting a golden glow over the bustling auction. A steady parade of horses from ranches across the region passed through, their coats shimmering under the sharp light. Buyers, clad in wide-brimmed hats and polished leather boots, moved purposefully among the enclosures, scrutinizing each animal with practiced eyes. Some jotted notes in small, weathered notebooks, while others whispered in low tones, gesturing toward the horses they hoped to claim. The lively chatter blended with the occasional neigh of a horse and the metallic clink of chains shifting against the ground. Whenever a particularly prized specimen strode into the exhibition ring, conversations would hush and the crowd's gaze would sharpen, hunger flickering in their eyes. "Look at that coat," one man said. "Those legs are built for speed," another added. Yet, off to the side, in a forgotten corner of the yard, stood a small pen that seemed to go unnoticed. Inside was a thin, listless horse, its head drooping low, its dull, dust-covered coat betraying no hint of vitality. Its ribs jutted out prominently, and its spindly legs barely seemed strong enough to support its frail body. Most passed by without a glance, though a few chuckled under their breath. "That one's hopeless," muttered a man, shaking his head in disdain. "Not even fit to pull a cart. Probably dragged here out of pity." Another scoffed. "Straight to the slaughterhouse is where that one belongs." The horse didn't flinch. Its sunken eyes didn't hold fear, but rather a resigned stillness, as though it had long accepted its invisibility and the world's indifference. Through the crowd, a young woman emerged, her stride purposeful. Sophia, her chestnut hair braided neatly and her light eyes brimming with quiet resolve, wore simple clothes. A white shirt smudged with dirt, worn jeans, and a pair of scuffed riding boots that spoke of years of hard labor. A small leather pouch hung at her side, holding every dollar she'd saved from long hours spent working on her family's ranch. She surveyed the gleaming, powerful horses with interest, but did not linger. Her grandfather, a patient and wise man who had taught her to ride, often reminded her, "Never judge a horse by its appearance. Look beyond what the eyes can see." His words echoed in her mind as she wandered the rows of pens. When she reached the neglected corner, she stopped. Her gaze landed on the frail horse, its despondent stance striking a chord deep within her. Something about its stillness, the way it seemed to understand its own rejection, held her in place. She approached the pen slowly, undeterred by the snickers of nearby men. "What are you doing here, boy?" she murmured gently, resting her hands on the weathered wooden fence. The horse lifted its head just enough for their eyes to meet. For a moment, Sophia's chest tightened. What she saw in its gaze wasn't mere sadness. It was something heavier, a blend of weariness and a quiet, unspoken longing to be noticed. "What do you see in that bag of bones?" came a mocking voice from an older man who sauntered up, smirking. "That's none of your concern," Sophia replied firmly, her eyes never leaving the horse. Slowly, she extended her hand toward the animal. At first it stiffened, but after a moment, as if sensing the kindness in her gesture, it cautiously leaned forward, its nose brushing her fingers. The touch was brief, but it was enough. Sophia had made up her mind. When the auctioneer finally announced the horse's turn, his tone lacked the enthusiasm he'd shown for the others. "All right, folks, here we have a young horse. Needs a bit of care, but perhaps someone can make something of him." Silence fell over the crowd. No one raised a hand. A few laughed quietly, while others turned away, dismissing the offer entirely. "I'll take him." Sophia's voice cut through the murmur of disbelief. Heads turned toward her, faces filled with incredulity. "You're kidding, right?" one man sneered. "What could you possibly want with that wreck? He's nothing but trouble." Ignoring the jeers, Sophia stepped forward. "What's the price?" she asked, directing her question to the auctioneer. He studied her with mild surprise, as though trying to understand why anyone would care about the animal. "Not much," he said after a pause. "Pay the minimum, and he's yours." She handed over the money with steady hands, fully aware of the laughter and whispers surrounding her. "Sold," the auctioneer declared with relief, closing the transaction. Taking hold of the rope tied to the horse, Sophia turned to him with a gentle smile. "From now on, your name is Blaze," she said softly, stroking his muzzle. "Don't worry, boy. No one will turn you away again." As they walked away from the noisy auction, the voices of the crowd trailed behind her. "That girl doesn't know what she's doing. She's going to regret it." But Sophia didn't look back. Walking alongside Blaze, she felt a mix of uncertainty and hope swirling inside her. She didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear. She'd seen something in that horse no one else had. And she wasn't going to give up on him. The two of them walked for hours along the dusty trail leading to her family's ranch. With every step, Blaze wavered slightly, his legs trembling as if they were on the verge of giving out. Concerned, Sophia stopped several times to let him rest. Each time she looked into his tired eyes, her resolve grew stronger. "It's okay, boy," she murmured, her voice soft as she patted his sweat-dampened neck. "We're almost there. I promise you'll never have to go through this again." The road was quiet, surrounded by dry fields and scraggly bushes swaying in the wind. Though her body ached with exhaustion, Sophia's mind raced with the weight of her decision. She'd spent most of her savings on a horse everyone else thought was worthless. The mocking voices from the auction replayed in her head. The chuckles, the incredulous stares, the murmurs of beyond saving. Yet, there was something about Blaze she couldn't ignore. Maybe it was the way he looked at her, or the inexplicable sense that they were meant to find each other. Sophia had always believed that horses, like people, had a spirit of their own. And sometimes, what seemed broken only needed someone willing to believe in it. By the time they reached the ranch, the sun was setting behind the rolling hills, painting the sky with hues of gold and orange. Her home was simple but warm, a wooden house with a small stable and a fenced corral. On the porch sat her grandfather, Samuel, sharpening an old tool. He was an older man with white hair and hands weathered from years of hard work. As she approached with Blaze, he set the tool down and squinted at them, his expression unreadable. "What's with the horse?" he finally asked, pushing himself up from his seat with his hands on his knees. "He's mine, Grandpa," Sophia replied, stopping in front of the house. Her voice was firm, though a faint trace of nervousness lingered in her tone. She knew Samuel wasn't one to judge hastily, but he also wasn't one to sugarcoat the truth. Slowly he stepped closer, scrutinizing the horse with a critical eye. He circled Blaze, taking in the thin legs, dull coat, and exhausted posture. Blaze barely flinched, too worn out from the journey. "Skinny as a scarecrow," Samuel muttered. "Looks like he hasn't had a decent meal in months." Sophia pressed her lips together but held her grandfather's gaze. "I know, Grandpa, but I believe he can recover. He just needs time, care, and someone who believes in him." Samuel raised an eyebrow, crossing his arms over his chest. time and care? Do you even understand what you're saying, girl? A horse in this condition doesn't just need food and rest. It takes real work, and not every horse comes back the way you hope. Sophia didn't hesitate. I'm willing to try, she said firmly. For a moment, Samuel studied her in silence. Finally, he let out a quiet sigh and nodded. Well, if you're that sure, go ahead, but he's your responsibility now. You'll have to take care of him, train him, and prove he's worth the effort. Relief and gratitude filled Sophia's face as she smiled. Thank you, Grandpa. I won't let you down. Samuel gestured toward the corral. Put him in the small pen for now. Tomorrow we'll see what we can do. Sophia led Blaze to the corral, where she had prepared a temporary space for him. She untied the rope around his neck and set him free. Blaze didn't move at first. He turned his head to look at Sophia, as if trying to make sense of what was happening. Kneeling down, she pulled out a bucket of fresh water and placed it in front of him. Here you go, boy. You've earned it. Blaze drank greedily, his body relaxing with each gulp. Then, Sophia fetched some hay and settled herself on the ground, watching him eat. At that moment, Sophia realized just how frail Blaze truly was. Yet, she also noticed something others seemed to overlook. Despite his fragility, the way he held his head high and observed every movement around him spoke of an inner strength that hadn't completely faded. Later that day, when her grandfather came back to check on them, he found Sophia fast asleep near the paddock, leaning against the fence. Blaze stood nearby, his ears slightly pricked, as if keeping watch over her. Mr. Samuel smiled quietly to himself. Maybe you're right, Nina, he murmured softly before turning to head back to the house. That night, under a sprawling sky full of stars, the beginnings of a bond, rooted in trust and hope, formed between Sophia and Blaze. The road ahead would be long and riddled with challenges, but they shared something unshakable, an unyielding faith in what they could become together. The first weeks at the ranch were more demanding than Sophia had anticipated. Blaze arrived in such poor condition that every day felt like a battle, to earn his trust, to strengthen his frail body, and to find hope in his recovery. Although he had access to plenty of food and water, he barely ate at first, as if years of deprivation had taught him not to expect nourishment. Each morning, Sophia rose early to prepare his feed, carefully mixing in supplements to help restore the nutrients he so desperately needed. She spent hours sitting with him, her voice low and soothing as she spoke to him while he observed her with wary curiosity. "It's okay, boy," she'd murmur. "There's no rush here. This is your time, and we'll make the most of it." The first real challenge came just a few days later. One crisp morning, Sophia decided it was time to take him to the main paddock so he could stretch his legs. But as soon as she tried to lead him through the gate, Blaze froze. His entire body stiffened, and his eyes widened with a fear Sophia hadn't seen before. "Easy now," she whispered, keeping a firm grip on the lead rope without pulling. She knew that forcing him would only make things worse. Nearby, Mr. Samuel watched from the fence, leaning on the cane he used to navigate the ranch. "That horse is broken," he said after a long pause, his tone more matter-of-fact than unkind. "You can see it in his eyes. Someone hurt him badly, and now he thinks every step could be a trap." "Then we'll fix him, Grandpa," Sophia replied, her gaze never leaving Blaze. "But we'll do it on his terms, not ours." That day, Sophia didn't push him any further. Instead, she sat down on the ground by the gate, letting the rope rest loosely in the dirt. Blaze stayed frozen at first, but gradually his body began to relax. They sat there for hours, the silence broken only by the rustling of leaves and the distant chirping of birds. The next day, they tried again, and the next. Each small step Blaze took toward the paddock felt like a monumental victory to Sophia. Though progress was painstakingly slow, she celebrated every milestone as if it were a triumph. Finally, when Blaze crossed the gate, Sophia's chest swelled with emotion, a lump forming in her throat. "I knew you could do it," she whispered, her voice filled with quiet pride as she stroked his neck. Rebuilding his physical strength proved equally arduous. Blaze, still weak and barely able to trot, grew tired quickly. Sophia devised a gentle regimen to help him regain his endurance, bit by bit. She started with simple walks around the paddock, guiding him patiently. Eventually, she introduced short bursts of trotting, careful never to push him beyond his limits. There were good days, when his progress felt steady and encouraging, and bad days, when fatigue or his lingering fear set them back. Yet, there was something about Blaze that left Sophia in awe, a spark of determination buried beneath his fragile exterior. Even on the toughest days, when it seemed like he had nothing left to give, Blaze would summon the will to take one more step. Mr. Samuel, initially skeptical of Sophia's efforts, began to take a more active role in the process. He often watched from the sidelines as she worked with Blaze, offering occasional advice drawn from his decades of experience. "Don't rush him," he'd say in his steady, gravelly voice. "A horse doesn't just need strength in his body, he needs strength in his mind too." Sophia listened carefully, grateful for his guidance, but she stayed true to her promise to help Blaze heal at his own pace. Together, they were laying the foundation for a transformation that neither of them could yet fully envision, but both believed in deeply. "All right, boy, let's give this a try together." With a steady hand, Sophia placed her foot in the stirrup and swung herself onto Blaze's back, moving carefully as she settled into the saddle. The horse froze almost instantly, his muscles tensing as though he was unsure of what to do next. Sophia remained calm, keeping her movements gentle and unhurried, giving Blaze time to adjust. "That's it, boy. You're doing great," she murmured, leaning forward to stroke his neck reassuringly. Blaze let out a long breath, and after a moment, he began to walk. His steps were hesitant at first, but with every lap around the paddock, he grew steadier, more confident. Sophia felt a surge of pride as she realized the horse wasn't just tolerating her presence. He was beginning to trust her. Standing by the fence, Don Samuel watched with a look of satisfaction. "See what I told you?" He wasn't broken. He just needed someone to remind him what he was capable of. That day marked a turning point for both Sophia and Blaze. With the saddle now a familiar weight, it was time to begin preparing him for future events. Sophia knew that mastering dressage and jumping would demand more than discipline and technique. It would require an unshakable bond between rider and horse. Weeks later, when it was time to leave the ranch and venture into the nearby open fields, Sophia saw the challenge ahead. The new terrain, with its unfamiliar sounds and shifting ground, was unsettling for Blaze. Their first outing was chaotic. The rustling of leaves in the wind and the crack of branches had him skittish and jittery. At one point, he startled and leapt sideways, nearly unseating her. "Easy now," Sophia said firmly, keeping a steady grip on the reins but resisting the urge to pull too hard. "I'm here. We've got this." Despite the setbacks, they pressed on. Each day brought small victories as Blaze began to trust not just Sophia, but also his own instincts. Their connection deepened, becoming something palpable to anyone watching. Don Samuel, observing them from afar, couldn't help but smile. "That horse doesn't just have strength," he remarked one afternoon to a friend. "He's got heart, and that's thanks to Sophia." The turning point came one late afternoon as they practiced basic jumps on a modest course Sophia had set up. At first, Blaze stumbled, his timing awkward, the bars clattering to the ground, but with patient repetition, he started to find his rhythm. When he finally cleared a jump cleanly, Sophia let out an exultant cheer, leaning forward to hug his neck. "You did it, boy. I knew you could." That night, sitting on the porch beneath a sky scattered with stars, Sophia couldn't help but dream of what lay ahead. Though the road to major competitions was still long, for the first time, she truly believed that Blaze was ready to take on the world. Months passed in relentless training. What began as basic groundwork evolved into something extraordinary. Blaze now leapt effortlessly over higher obstacles and executed precise maneuvers that showcased their growing partnership. Yet, for Sophia, the greatest challenge still loomed, stepping into the competitive arena. One crisp morning, as she scanned the schedule of local equestrian events, Don Samuel approached, a steaming mug of coffee in hand. "Well, have you made up your mind yet?" Sophia sighed, setting the paper down on the table. "There's a competition in town next month," she admitted, "but I'm not sure we're ready. There's still so much to perfect." Samuel gave her a pointed look. "Listen, girl, nobody starts out perfect. If you keep waiting for the perfect moment, it'll never come. Blaze is ready, and so are you. The only thing left is for you to believe it." Bolstered by her grandfather's encouragement, Sophia signed up for the local competition. It was a small event geared toward beginners, but to her, it felt monumental. The thought of performing in front of a crowd of spectators and seasoned riders sent waves of anxiety through her. The day of the competition arrived before she knew it. Sophia prepared Blaze with meticulous care, brushing his coal-black coat until it gleamed in the morning sunlight. She checked and adjusted the saddle one last time, making sure everything was just right. "You ready, boy?" she asked, looking into his deep, intelligent eyes. Blaze responded with a soft whinny, as if he understood what was at stake. When they arrived at the arena, the buzz of the crowd and the constant movement of horses and riders made Blaze restless. He shifted nervously, tossing his head and snorting every time something caught his attention. Helena remained calm, guiding him steadily while speaking to him in a soothing voice. "Easy now. We're in this together," she whispered, stroking his neck gently. As her turn approached, Helena noticed the curious glances from some of the other participants and spectators. Many recognized the skinny, awkward horse from the auction, though now he seemed almost unrecognizable. "Isn't that a horse no one wanted to buy?" She overheard a man near the rail mutter. "Sure looks like it, but they've cleaned him up. Doubt he's up to the challenge, though," another man quipped with a laugh. Helena clenched her jaw, ignoring the remarks. She knew Blaze was far more than what they could see. When her name was finally called, adrenaline surged through her veins. With a firm motion, she mounted Blaze and guided him into the arena. The course was simple, but required precision and trust. Helena took a deep breath, adjusted the reins, and gave the signal. Blaze started with a steady trot that soon transitioned into an elegant gallop. The first obstacle, a low bar, was cleared effortlessly. Then came a higher jump, and though Blaze hesitated for a brief moment, he leapt with a burst of power that silenced the crowd. Each jump, each turn, was a testament to the hard work they had poured into this moment. Though not flawless, their synchronization was undeniable. For Helena, it wasn't about winning, it was about showing the world what they had achieved together. When they crossed the finish line, the audience erupted into applause. While not everyone grasped the full significance of their accomplishment, many recognized the dedication and effort behind it. From the saddle, Helena embraced Blaze, overwhelmed by a mix of relief, pride, and gratitude. In the resting area, other competitors approached to congratulate her. One of them, A young man named Ethan studied her with interest. That's the same horse I saw at the auction months ago, isn't it? Helena nodded, running her hand down Blaze's neck. Yes, this is him. His name is Blaze, and he's much more than anyone imagined. Ethan smiled, visibly impressed. You've done something incredible. That horse has something special, and so do you. When the results were announced, Helena didn't expect to place. To her astonishment, they took third. Collecting her medal, she felt a shift within herself. It was no longer just about proving Blaze's worth. It was about embracing the journey they had shared. That evening, as they returned to the ranch, Mr. Samuel waited on the porch, his expression a mix of pride and affection. I knew you'd do it, girl, but this is just the beginning. Helena smiled, glancing at Blaze. I know, Grandpa, but I'm ready for whatever comes next. And so is Blaze. With their first competition behind them, the road to new goals and challenges felt clearer than ever. In the days following the event, a wave of emotions swept over Helena and Blaze. The satisfaction of their accomplishment lingered, but a new level of attention began to surround them. One morning, as Helena fed Blaze in the stable, Mr. Samuel appeared holding an envelope. This is for you, girl, he said. Looks like you've caught someone's eye. Helena wiped her hands on her apron before opening the letter. Inside was an invitation to compete in a regional show, jumping and dressage event, far more prestigious than the local competition. The invitation came with a personal note from the organizer. We want to commend your dedication and the evident bond you share with your horse. We believe Blaze has remarkable potential, and it would be an honor to have you among the participants. Helena smiled, though a flicker of nervousness ran through her. Competing in an event of this scale meant facing the best, but it also offered an incredible opportunity to showcase Blaze's true worth. What do you think, Grandpa? She asked, holding out the letter. Mr. Samuel read the document carefully, his expression contemplative. Then he nodded with a quiet conviction. I believe this is the next step. But be ready. The higher you climb, the sharper the eyes watching you will become. With that, their training resumed, but this time the intensity increased. Sophia decided to bring in a seasoned trainer to help refine their technique. Luis, the trainer, was a serious yet fair man who quickly noticed something extraordinary about Blaze. One day, as he watched the horse clear a jump with grace and power, he remarked, "This horse has heart, but there's a wild spirit in him too." His tone carried a note of admiration. That combination is rare. Just make sure he never loses the trust he has in you. That's what makes him one of a kind. The day of the regional event came sooner than Sophia expected. The venue was grand, with towering stands filled with spectators and riders mounted on impeccably trained horses. Blaze, though slightly nervous, appeared more composed than he had been at their last competition. His stance was steady, his ears pricked forward, attentively tuned to Sophia's every move. While warming up in the practice area, Sophia noticed a group of men observing them from a distance. At first, she paid them no mind, but soon one face stood out, familiar and unmistakable. It was the auctioneer who had sold Blaze months ago. "Is that the horse nobody wanted to buy?" one of the men asked, his voice tinged with surprise and respect. "Yeah, but it seems the girl saw something the rest of us didn't," another replied. "Just look at what she's done with him." Sophia pretended not to hear, focusing on her preparation. However, just before she entered the arena, one of the men approached her. He was broad-shouldered, carrying himself with a confidence that teetered on arrogance. "Excuse me, miss," he began, his tone casual yet pointed. "Name's Carter, I was at the auction where you bought this horse. I have to admit, I never thought he'd amount to much. What you've accomplished is impressive." Sophia inclined her head slightly, her expression guarded. Carter pressed on. "Actually, I'd like to make you an offer. I'm prepared to buy this horse for a substantial sum. What do you say?" Sophia straightened, meeting his gaze with quiet defiance. "He's not for sale. Blaze isn't just a horse to me. He's my partner." Carter smiled faintly, as though unfazed by her response. "I can offer you more money than you'd ever make in these competitions. Think of what you could achieve with a horse bred for this. A thoroughbred with the perfect lineage." Sophia tightened her grip on Blaze's reins, sensing the horse tense slightly, as though he understood every word. Her voice was firm as she replied, "No amount of money can buy what he and I have built together. Blaze stays with me." Carter's confident facade faltered briefly before he shrugged. "Suit yourself. But remember my words. A horse like that deserves better than this." Sophia watched him walk away, a mix of pride and irritation stirring in her chest. She knew all eyes were on her and Blaze, some admiring, others waiting for them to stumble, but she refused to let that weigh on her. When their turn came, Sophia and Blaze entered the arena with unwavering determination. The obstacles were higher, the course more demanding than anything they had faced before. Yet Sophia trusted her horse completely. With every jump, every turn, they proved their mettle. The bond between them was unmistakable, each movement a testament to their unity. By the end of the course, the crowd erupted into applause. Though they didn't claim first place, finishing second at their first regional competition was a remarkable achievement. For Sophia, however, the trophy mattered far less than the validation of their partnership. That evening, as they returned to the ranch, Sophia reflected on the day. She understood that with success came greater attention, and with it, new challenges. But no matter the offers or the scrutiny, Blaze was far more than just a horse. He was her partner, her friend, and together they were ready to take on whatever came their way. What had started as a personal dream was now evolving into a remarkable journey, and the bond between them was the key to their success. Each competition brought fresh lessons, serving as a reminder of how far they'd come since that auction where everyone had turned their backs on Blaze. Yet, with the fame came challenges. After the regional event, rumors began swirling in equestrian circles about the rejected horse, who had risen to champion status. To some, it was an inspiring tale. To others, it was met with skepticism. One afternoon, as Sophia practiced in the ranch's paddock, a sleek car pulled up to the entrance. A tall man stepped out, his tailored suit a sharp contrast to the rugged surroundings. "Sophia Martinez?" he asked, his voice steady and confident. Sophia dismounted from Blaze, her curiosity piqued as she led him toward the fence. "That's me," she replied. "How can I help you?" "My name is Logan West," the man said, handing her a business card. "I represent one of the most prestigious horse breeders in the country. I've been following your progress in competitions, and I must say, I'm impressed. Your horse Blaze is extraordinary." Sophia accepted the card but kept her eyes on him, her wariness unmistakable. "Thank you," she said. "We've worked hard to get here." "That much is clear," West replied, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "And that's precisely why I'm here. My client is very interested in purchasing Blaze. He's prepared to offer you a substantial sum, far more than any prize money you could win in competition." Sophia felt her chest tighten. The offer was no different from the one she'd received at the regional event, but West's polished demeanor made it all the more unsettling. "He's not for sale," she said firmly, running a hand along Blaze's neck. West didn't seem surprised. "I understand your attachment to him, but I urge you to think about what this money could do for you. You could buy a horse with a stronger lineage, one that could take you to the very top of this sport." Sophia stepped forward, positioning herself protectively in front of Blaze. "West, I don't think you understand what this horse means to me. He's not just a competition partner. He's my friend, my teammate. Everything we've achieved, we've done together. No amount of money can buy that." West studied her for a moment before shrugging. "It's a shame," he said, "but let me make one thing clear. In this world, sentiment won't take you far. Greatness comes at a cost, and sooner or later, you'll have to decide if you're willing to pay it." With that, he turned and walked back to his car. Sophia watched him leave, anger and determination simmering within her. Later that night, as she cleaned out the stables, she recounted the conversation to Don Samuel. He listened quietly, leaning on the shovel he'd been using to help her. "People like that always show up when they see something shining," he said at last. "But the real question is, why are you on this path, Sophia? If you're doing it for glory, they might sway you someday. But if it's for something more, then no offer will make you waver." Sophia considered his words, her gaze drifting to Blaze, who rested peacefully in his stall. Her expression softened as memories of the times when the world had dismissed him flooded back. How together they'd defied every odds stacked against them. "I'm not doing this for trophies, Grandpa," she said finally. "I'm here to prove that worth doesn't come from what others think. And because Blaze deserves to shine. Not for them, but for himself." Don Samuel nodded with a proud smile. "Then keep going, girl. But remember, the higher you climb, the harder they'll try to pull you down." Sophia knew he was right. As her reputation grew, so would the challenges. But she was determined to protect what they'd built, no matter the cost. With that resolve, she and Blaze continued their training, preparing for the next big test, the National Show Jumping Championship. There, they would face not only the country's best, but also the expectations and doubts that still lingered. For Sophia, there was no greater satisfaction than proving time and again that Blaze was far more than just a horse. He was a champion, both in body and spirit. The day of the National Show Jumping Championship arrived, thick with tension and excitement in the crisp morning air. For Sophia, this wasn't just another competition. It was her chance to prove that she and Blaze belonged among the elite of equestrian sports. The venue was nothing short of awe-inspiring, with towering grandstands packed with spectators, their chatter blending with the soft neighs of restless horses. Around the warm-up area, impeccably bred horses and seasoned riders moved with practiced confidence, each exuding an air of determination. "Ready for this, girl?" Mr. Samuel asked, his hand resting firmly on Sophia's shoulder as they both surveyed the course from a distance. Sophia took a deep breath and glanced at Blaze. Despite the commotion around them, the horse stood steady and focused, as if he too understood the weight of this moment. "We're ready, Grandpa. No matter what happens, we'll face it together." The competition was divided into two phases. An initial round of medium-height obstacles, followed by a second, more technical and demanding circuit. Only the best riders would make it to the final round, and Sophia knew that every jump needed to be flawless if she hoped to qualify. When her name was called, the murmurs from the grandstands grew louder. While some had heard of Sophia and Blaze, many doubted that a horse once rejected at auction could stand up to animals bred specifically for this level of competition. Sophia mounted with calm precision, adjusting the reins as she guided Blaze toward the starting line. The crowd hushed when they took their position. "All right, buddy, this is our moment," she whispered, gently stroking Blaze's neck. The whistle blew and Blaze surged forward in a fluid gallop. The first obstacle, a triple jump, both tall and wide, loomed ahead. With powerful grace, Blaze cleared it effortlessly, drawing scattered applause from the crowd. One by one, they conquered the challenges before them. Each turn and leap was a testament to the countless hours of training and the unbreakable bond between rider and horse. As they crossed the finish line without penalties, the audience erupted in cheers. Rider 47, Sofia Martinez, and her horse Blaze advanced to the second round with an impressive time, the announcer declared. Sofia exhaled deeply, her lips curling into a smile as she ran her hand along Blaze's mane. "We did it, boy. We really did it." In the resting area, Sofia felt the curious gazes of other competitors, some filled with admiration, others with skepticism. A few approached to offer congratulations, while others kept their distance, silently watching. Among the well-wishers was Ethan, a young rider she'd met during a regional competition. "I knew you had something special, but that was incredible," Ethan said, his smile warm and sincere. "Thank you, Ethan. But Blaze is the real star," Sofia replied humbly, scratching behind her horse's ears. The second course promised to be far more challenging, with sharp turns, intricate combinations, and towering obstacles. Sofia watched the other competitors navigate the course, each displaying remarkable skill. But as her turn approached, she could feel the weight of the crowd's attention, their eyes following her every move. This time, the stakes felt even higher, but Sofia reminded herself to focus on what mattered most: her connection with Blaze. The course was relentless. At the third obstacle, a tricky zigzag combination, Blaze hesitated for a split second. But with a steady hand and a quiet command, Sofia guided him back into rhythm, and they cleared it cleanly. Her heartbeat quickened as they neared the final challenge, a daunting double jump, impossibly tall and seemingly designed to intimidate. Blaze galloped forward with unwavering determination, and with a powerful surge, they soared through the air, landing flawlessly on the other side. The grandstands erupted in thunderous applause. Sofia leaned forward, pressing her forehead against Blaze's neck as the announcer proclaimed her time, the second fastest of the day. When the award ceremony began, Sofia and Blaze stood proudly on the podium, their silver medal gleaming in the afternoon sun. It wasn't gold, but for Sofia, the achievement carried a significance far beyond the color of the medal. In the stands, Mr. Samuel's eyes glistened with pride, while Ethan clapped enthusiastically among the cheering crowd. Yet, even as she reveled in the moment, Sofia noticed familiar faces in the audience. Carter and West stood at a distance, their expressions a mix of astonishment and envy. Clutching the medal in her hand, Sofia leaned toward Blaze and whispered, "This is only the beginning, my friend. Together we'll go even further." That evening, back at the ranch, Sofia and Mr. Samuel sat quietly on the porch, the silver medal resting on the table between them. Under a blanket of stars, they celebrated in silence, the kind of silence that spoke volumes of gratitude, love, and the promise of brighter days ahead. For Sofia, success wasn't measured by trophies or medals, but by the unbreakable bond she shared with Blaze. That bond was steadfast. Months after the national championship, Sofia and Blaze had become well-known figures in the equestrian circuit. Their story inspired many, especially those who believed in second chances. But with fame came an onslaught of attention that would test everything Sofia had built with Blaze. On a crisp morning, as she trained at the ranch, Mr. Samuel came running from the house, his expression grave. In his hand was a newspaper. "You need to see this," he said, handing it to her. Sophia dismounted and took the paper. On the front page was a photo of her and Blaze during the last championship, accompanied by a bold headline: "The rejected horse, the unlikely champion. Everyone wants to buy." The article detailed their rise through the competitions, recounting the auction where Blaze had been ignored and how now breeders and investors were offering extravagant sums to buy him. "They can't be serious," Sophia muttered, anger rising in her chest. "Oh, they're serious," Mr. Samuel replied. "Ever since you won that silver medal, everyone's got their eyes on you and Blaze." Before she could respond, a sleek black car pulled into the ranch's driveway. Out stepped 3 men in sharp suits. Sophia immediately recognized one of them, Carter, the man who had tried to buy Blaze at the regional championship. "What do they want now?" she murmured as Mr. Samuel approached the men. "Stay calm, girl," he advised. "Hear them out, but don't forget who you are or why you're doing this." He opened the stable door to greet them. Carter wasted no time getting to the point. "Miss Martinez, we've met before, but today I'm here with a formal offer. My client is willing to pay $5 million for your horse. This also includes a contract for you to join us as a trainer at our facilities." Sophia folded her arms, her stance resolute. "I've already told you, Blaze isn't for sale. Not for $5 million. Not for 10. No amount of money will change that." Carter smirked, clearly unaccustomed to hearing such a firm rejection. "Miss Martinez, this isn't just a business deal. This is an opportunity for you. You could train other horses, compete internationally. Why limit yourself to just one horse?" Sophia's blood boiled. She stepped forward and pointed toward Blaze, who stood watching them from the corral. "Do you know what that horse means to me? When everyone else dismissed him, I saw him for what he truly is, a fighter, a champion. Everything I've achieved has been with him, not because he's got some perfect pedigree, but because he has heart. And that's something you'll never understand." The men exchanged uneasy glances, taken aback by her unwavering conviction. Carter made one last attempt. "We understand your emotional attachment, but feelings don't win championships, Miss Martinez. Think about it. $5 million. That's more money than you'll see in your entire life." Sophia drew a deep breath, steadying herself. Finally, she lifted her chin and locked eyes with Carter. "Blaze isn't for sale. He's my partner, my family, and I'll never betray him for money. If you're done trying to persuade me, I'd appreciate it if you left." Carter's face darkened, but he had nothing left to say. Without another word, he and his companions returned to their car and drove off. As the sound of the engine faded, Mr. Samuel let out a hearty laugh. "That'll give them something to think about. I don't reckon they'll bother you again." Sophia managed a smile, though her heart was still racing. She turned to watch Blaze, now running freely in the corral, and walked over to him. Pressing her forehead against his, she closed her eyes. "I promise to protect you, remember? No matter what happens, we'll always have each other." Blaze let out a soft snort, as if he understood every word. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Sophia sat on the porch with Mr. Samuel. The air was calm, filled with a quiet hum of crickets and the warmth of shared resolve. "Do you think I made the right choice?" Sophia asked, her gaze fixed on the horizon. The old man adjusted his weathered hat before responding, "The right choice isn't always the easiest or the most rewarding in material terms. But if you can go to bed at night knowing you stayed true to what you love, then yes, you made the right choice." Sophia nodded silently, her heart heavy yet certain. Deep down, She knew Blaze's worth wasn't defined by the offers she'd received, but by everything they had built together. Years went by, yet the bond between Sophia and Blaze remained unshaken. They didn't win every competition they entered, but they accomplished something far more meaningful. They inspired others to see potential where none seemed to exist. Blaze became a legend, not just for his triumphs in the arena, but for his story of resilience. Whenever Sophia shared how she had first bought him at an auction, where others had dismissed him as worthless, people's faces lit up with amazement and admiration. One quiet afternoon at the ranch, as Sophia was brushing Blaze under the golden sunlight, her grandfather, Mr. Samuel, approached with an old notebook in hand. Curious, she paused and asked, "What's that, Grandpa?" "It's something you should start writing in," he said, handing her the notebook. "Your story with Blaze, not to boast, but to show others what it means to never give up." Sophia opened the notebook, smiling at the blank pages. "Do you really think anyone would want to read it?" Mr. Samuel's eyes shone with pride as he replied, "Trust me, girl, your story has the power to change lives." Motivated by his words, Sophia began writing at night, while Blaze rested in his stall. She poured her memories onto the pages, recollecting every moment of their journey, from the auction to their grueling training sessions, the competitions, and the times they nearly gave up. But she also wrote about Blaze's unwavering spirit, his loyalty, and how he taught her that the true worth of a champion wasn't in their pedigree, but in their heart. When the notebook was finally filled, Sophia published it as a book titled Blaze, the Horse Nobody Wanted. The book resonated deeply, not just with horse enthusiasts, but with anyone who had ever felt underestimated. Meanwhile, Blaze enjoyed his well-deserved retirement at the ranch. Though he no longer competed, he still trotted energetically around the paddock, played in the fields, and welcomed children who visited to learn about caring for horses. During one of these visits, a small boy shyly approached Sophia. "Is it true this is the horse from the book?" he asked, pointing at Blaze grazing peacefully beneath a tree. "Yes," Sophia said with a warm smile. "And is it true nobody wanted him?" The boy's question made her kneel to meet his eyes. "That's right. Nobody wanted him at first, but he was always special. He just needed someone to believe in him." The boy's gaze filled with wonder as he ran off to pet Blaze, his laughter echoing across the ranch. That evening, Sophia sat on the porch, watching the stars, as Mr. Samuel, now older and more frail, joined her. "Do you realize what you've accomplished, girl?" he said softly. "Blaze didn't just change your life. He changed countless others. That horse wasn't just a champion. He became a symbol of hope." Sophia looked toward the paddock, where Blaze lay resting under the same glittering sky. "He taught me everything, Grandpa. I'm not sure if I saved him or if he saved me." Mr. Samuel chuckled, maybe a little bit of both. That night, as Sophia lay down to sleep, she felt a profound peace, knowing she had kept the promise she'd made to Blaze from the beginning, to protect him, to care for him, and to show the world his true worth. Wow, wasn't that such a beautiful story? Although it's entirely fictional, it carries such a profound message about hope, resilience, and the ability to see worth where others see none. I think what makes this story truly special is how it reminds us that the greatest victories in life aren't about trophies or recognition, but about the bonds we create, the faith we nurture, and the courage to stand by those who need it most. Sophia saw something in Blaze that no one else could. While others laughed and dismissed him, she saw potential, spirit, and a heart worth saving. And isn't that a lesson we all need to remember? Whether it's about people, animals, or even our own dreams, Sometimes the world overlooks what's truly valuable, but it only takes one person, one chance, to make all the difference. This story is more than just about a horse and a girl. It's a metaphor for so many struggles in life, feeling unseen, undervalued, or underestimated. But as Blaze's journey shows us, with patience, love, and determination, what's deemed broken can become extraordinary. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What part of Blaze's story resonated with you the most? Was it Sophia's quiet determination, Blaze's transformation, or maybe that moment at the auction when the world gave up on him, but Sophia refused to? Leave a comment and let me know. And if you've ever experienced a moment where someone believed in you or you chose to believe in someone else, I'd love to hear that too. Stories like these remind us of the power of kindness and second chances. So, what do you think? On a scale from 0 to 10, how would you rate Blaze's journey? Let's talk about it in the comments below. I can't wait to hear your thoughts.